Morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Today's topic is on Liberty Reports for Sage Estimating with presenter James Coyle from Event One Software. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone is in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. The webinar will be recorded, and we will email out a copy to everyone later today. I will now turn it over to you, James.
Thank you, Krista, and thank you to Accordant for hosting this, and thanks everyone who's taken the time to join live, and also those who later watch this. There's a few slides we're going to cover on just the background, what Liberty Reports is, so you have a basic understanding, and an understanding of generally our Excel-based reporting. So we'll hit those, and then we'll jump right into the software, and we'll talk about that. So I'll just proceed here. Event One Software created Liberty Reports as an extension of our Excel-based reporting that we had already created for formerly Timberline, now Sage 300 Construction Real Estate. So we've been in business for over 20 years. We've been partners with Sage. Before that, Timberline. My personal experience with the technology goes back 35 years. So I worked at Timberline and worked with business partners and as consultants. We've provided integration solutions, and with our Office Connector technology, which this is going to be very similar to, we have over 2,500 companies that utilize this technology. And with Office Connector Starter, I mean, it would be over 10,000 companies and over 10,000 concurrent users out there using the technology. So it's tried and true technology. You can be confident in that. We'll be focusing on Liberty Reports in this presentation. So if you have been at conferences and have seen Excel-based reporting that we've demonstrated, this is something specifically for Sage Estimating and specifically for the SQL version of Sage Estimating. So Liberty Reports is our technology that connects to SQL Server databases. Now, even though the estimating is SQL Server, we have a very specific version for Sage Estimating, and that's what I'll be demonstrating for you today. And there's good reasons why you would want to use that. But just bear in mind that if you have information in other databases that you wish to also report on, the version of Liberty Reports that would work for them would be very similar to what I'm going to demonstrate here today. And also, if you want to draw information in from other sources in Excel, so that you know, from a collaborative perspective, that's going to be a strength of this kind of technology. So Liberty Reports is an Excel add-in. It's designed, you know, to run reports, design reports or run reports in Excel. You're not pushing data into Excel. So that concept where you have a report, like a crystal report, and you save it in a certain way that gets it into Excel, that's not what this is. It would be more similar to Microsoft Query, where I can connect to tables in databases and pull them in. It's just going to be a lot more powerful and easier to use. The end result is going to be visually stimulating, interactive reports that are going to be highly useful. But it will also reinforce that we do not advocate warehousing data in Excel, or even using Excel, you know, for a purpose that it really is. It's not best suited. So I know a lot of people use Excel as an estimating front end, and that's not what this is. It's to utilize the data from here, in this case, estimating databases, and bring it in and be able to utilize it in a useful way. Now, people will be very successful using this because it's going to leverage your knowledge of Excel. You know how to use an Excel, do an Excel formula, then you're going to most likely be very successful creating something with this, certainly using what's created for you. And I'll remind you that at every point, this is Excel. So if you want to copy and paste information from something you see that's here, Excel is inherently able to do that. It's also inherently able to share information with other Microsoft products like, well, PowerPoint or Outlook or Word for that matter. So if you want to do mail merging and have that kind of information in Word, Excel's a fantastic conduit now. It would be an easy conduit for you, leveraging information and estimating. When you interact with this information, the interactive experience is that you can input information into cells and columns, and you can put in comments next to information that will persist next to the information you enter. So we're going to overcome some deficiencies in Excel, consequently, you're getting an experience that's going to be superior to just a report that just sits there and you print out or you look at it. It's going to be able to be very interactive, and you can also do things like drilling down into information, and I'll be demonstrating some of that here today. So that's it. You know, conceptually, if you're familiar with what a pivot table is, that's one way to take information and summarize it and then be able to get into the information. But what we're talking about here is something more powerful than that, and it'll run faster. That is to present summarized information, but as you explore and want to get into the details behind it, you can do so with this technology. It will work like a crystal sub-report if you're familiar with that. And of course, you've got your Excel interactive filtering and sorting. So you've got those things going for you as well when you utilize it. In the Liberty Reports arena, we have over 500 companies using it. That's over 1,000 users. If you add that to our already well-established Office Connector database, that's over 3,000 companies that have acquired pieces and parts of our software to utilize and build reports for them. And that population is growing. We expect it to grow significantly with the release of this technology. So when we think about what Liberty Reports is, and I've said that it's an add-in to Excel, you're in Excel, then you can draw data from other sources and pull them into Excel. So when we first created this, the first consultants were using just our generic Liberty Report SQL server to pull information out of the SQL database. Now there's good reason why you don't want to do that, and I'll explain that here. It'll have something to do with what we call staged information. But you can pull data from other sources. So if we have people who have, say, Prolog, and you want to combine data from Prolog with other information, or Sage CRM, or any of these other SQL Server databases, we can accommodate that. As a matter of fact, there are systems like Procore, you know, for example, that's cloud-based, but their data can be replicated to a SQL Server locally. We actually have a tool to accommodate that. So reporting on cloud-based information is also possible. Everything here within Excel. So you have a lot going for you, but we're going to start here, you know, with our estimating solution. I will point out that when you build something with this technology, one of the things that we did, in addition to pre-built reports, is in the designer, we've created report-ready captions so that it's more understandable and intuitive to someone who might want to try to create their own reports. We've automatically joined tables, and we have other database-specific features in there. Yet, I strongly recommend that you partner with your consultants. As a matter of fact, one of the top consultants ever for estimating is an Accordant consultant. He's here on the phone, Joe Callahan. So he's a panelist and can jump in and help me out if I need some assistance, you know, with the estimating subject matter. But I don't believe I'm going to need very much, because I have this technology here going for me. So I have this is what it's going to look like if you install Liberty Reports in your environment. So Liberty Reports, you're not going to have Excel running, but when you install it, it's going to add capability to Excel, and it's going to put this launch pad on your system. Now, you'll get all these tabs, but none of them will work, only the ones that you have acquired the technology. So Sage Estimating, and of course this Welcome tab. Now I'm pointing this out to you because this is a means for you to get information anytime. It's available to you anytime. Orientation, step-by-step tutorials, things like this, to understand and utilize this technology, Liberty Reports, so it's available to you. In addition to help, we have an online knowledge base that's ever growing. So we have that going for you. But we're going to be focusing here on the Sage Estimating. And there's a couple of reports here that are created. that from input from consultants and business partners and a few customers as to what would be desirable. And I'm going to start with Spreadsheet Viewer. So the reason I'm going to start with that is it should look, the information here should look very familiar to you based on your Sage Estimating front end that you see. So you have a grid front end in estimating, and here I've duplicated it. However, I'm leveraging the capability of Excel. So I can see this information. I have subtotals over here. And that's just Excel. If you sort and total, subtotal, then you're going to get these over here, and I can collapse them. So I can collapse the information, and I can get into specific information all the way down to the details. So you can create a report like this with your estimating information. This particular one's already created. You don't have to worry about it. And you're leveraging, again, knowledge of Excel. So over here, I may have information on material that's more summarized, the price and material amount. So I can navigate this on one screen. It's easy for me. But notice on the top here, I have this plus. So that's Excel grouping. So I can highlight multiple columns in Excel and tell it under the data tab here to group, and you get this situation. So it's similar to what you see over here on the left for sorting and subtotaling. So it's a way to manage the amount of information that's visible on your screen. I'll open up the subcontractor one here. So you've got information that's being pulled from the database. Now, any of these, if you want to add a formula or some other additional information to this, it's simply a matter of following some steps to, of course, you'd remove your subtotals and you'd remove your filter control. But then it's just a matter of clicking on a column and right-clicking and inserting and beginning to create a formula or add new content, because it's Excel. If I want to take this information here and I want to highlight it and copy and paste it into an Outlook email or a Word document or whatever, another Excel, I can do that quite easily. Over here, if I come to the Liberty Reports tab, if I have a report here and I want to share it with somebody who doesn't have Liberty Reports, I just want to give them this workbook with the values that are in it. Then there's an option here that says Save As Values, and then that will become just an Excel workbook with all the Excel formulas still intact. So it's a little bit different than Excel Save As Values because Excel will remove formulas and replace them with values. Here, all your Excel functionality will be preserved. We're simply replacing our formulas and the connection to Sage with just the values, that you had refreshed, but easily shareable. Just for those who may not be aware, when you do things with Excel, I could come over here to like the phase code and or to the group code, and I'm seeing a list of the options there. I could hit unselect, and maybe I just want to focus on concrete, or I want to focus only on the Division 7. I used to know my division so well. Thermal and moisture protection. I thought it was, but my memory lapsed this morning. But it doesn't matter because I can find the information I want just looking at it here. So again, it's just to remind you that Excel capability is behind here. So when the person who created this, the consultant who created this, they went through a process of thinking about what's in Sage and how I want to show it in Excel so that it's most useful. And they went through a process then to build this. And that's what you and your consultants or your consultant would do here for you. Notice there's also a comments column over here that we've added. And we did that because we've worked with people who have used Excel now for over 18 years. So we've got the best practices of tens of thousands of people. And we noticed that people very often would want to put information in, comments, maybe it's a percent or a multiplier or some other type of thing, doing what if scenarios. But when this data is refreshed, because you've generated this on a workbook, on an estimate, and now you've added more items. And those items, when you refresh, they're going to populate in their respective positions. Well, what would happen with this information that you typed into Excel? Normally would say something like Microsoft Query, the data you type in stays on the row you typed it. When you refresh, that relevant data with that comment, for example, would be down perhaps several rows. Well, then that information you type in becomes useless and actually confusing. So we've created technology that with this software that will retain information where you type it, and we've utilized it here in this example. So we have a workbook example here for you. You have other things here like high repeating codes and what have you. Now, I'll point out that anytime you open up a workbook created by us, and we would recommend that anyone creating templates for folks or workbooks follow the same process, and that is there's an information page that tells you about this template, what the assumptions were, what the requirements are, what the work process is. Now, this is a strong advantage to you. I taught programming when I was a programmer, before I graduated, and documenting what you create is something that not a lot of people do, but you should take the time to do it. The person who originally creates something may not be there always, and if you want to come back and maintain this or change it, then you need to understand what the purpose was, what the dependencies are, so on and so forth. So we provide you a means to do that, and with a recommended process. And we also, if you're going to get a designer and attempt to build your own content, we have starter templates that will have all these respective tabs ready to go for you to help you. Now, I'm evangelizing you and preaching to you, and then of course people don't do these things. So I just strongly recommend the benefits of documentation are going to be very important. Here on this tab, what we've done is we've laid out the ability to look at your estimate catalog. That is going to be a concept in with a SQL, and you can see your different estimates. You can pick one this way, right? So if you just came into a blank Excel workbook, then you're not going to see this kind of staged information. Then you still have to think about, what am I pulling out of my system, and how am I going to make this useful now, but also going forward, so it's sustainable. Now, if you're just building something ad hoc just to get data out, maybe you're not going to follow all these steps. But we recommend you have an administration page like this, and that you're showing your estimates. It makes it very useful for someone who's navigating. They pick what they want. These checkboxes are created with Excel. Under developer tools, you can insert a checkbox or a button like this, and you can tie the results to it. So elsewhere in this workbook on the reports tab, whatever I've set up, like checkbox, then I'll have a formula somewhere that says, if allocate add-ons is checked, then do this thing. So I would hit refresh data right here. Now when you do that, it's just a macro. So when you click that, it's actually coming up to the Library Reports tab and clicking refresh, essentially. And then it's doing some other things. It's putting in the subtotals and maybe some of the formatting that's happening when we do this macro. But when you build something, if you're going to do that yourself, you don't have to go to all these steps. But we recommend it's a good step-by-step process to do so. So that's an example of one of the workbooks that comes with the software. I'm going to close that. And so I generated that from the Spreadsheet Viewer option. So again, we have two license types with Liberty Reports. A standard license that's very affordable, allows you to refresh workbooks that are either on the Launchpad or that a consultant creates for you. And I have no doubt you're going to see an extended list of workbooks out there available for you to acquire that your consultant is going to create. We've got a couple of them already, so I'm going to go into this Spreadsheet Explorer. In fact, I think I may already have that generated. Yes. So we follow the same route with this. Again, the information page and this admin page. Now I'll point out this allocate add-ons because there are the actual tables that the data is in Excel, or sorry, in estimating. But then there's the concept of add-ons that, if you use estimating, you most likely know what I'm talking about, that you can be calculated based on certain items, and you may want to spread the add-ons to those items so that the amounts reflect the add-ons. That actually was one of the complications that kept us away from building this technology prior to the SQL version. So we have this option here, and basically by doing so, there is data that can be staged. So there's another set of tables, if you will, or views that will populate by Sage when you tell it to stage the data. So when we do that, now we can utilize that information. So by refreshing this data for this estimate, I'm going to get a number of different tabs. And the tabs that are created here, stop talking and actually do it. What's going on here? All right, 1 second here. Let me close this thing. Something's up with that workbook. You can practice something before you get in front of people, and then when you get in front of people, it'll just work differently. So when you come in and you build something, well, actually, this is actually good because I'm showing you. You get an opportunity to pick the databases. So Liberty Reports will ask you to identify a name and then the respective database for it. So for address book, for your databases, for your estimates. So here, this solution that you see here in front of you requires various different tables, and it's prompting me. It says select the address book because the address book was utilized as part of this process. So I select the address book here. And now I'm going to pick this. All right, what am I doing wrong here? Bail me out, Joe. I just did this morning. I may just be tired here. Let me just try this one more time.
Looks like it's not pulling from the estimate for some reason.
Yeah. The prompt, I think I can go in and tell it to which tables to pull from, but the idea is that when you build a template, you can prompt for what you want. You know, once you build something and you connect to your data, then it's connected. But when you build something, you can tell it, you know, what the source is. So saying select the data for Sage Estimating Address Book. So if I choose that, that's going to be local here. I know we have multiple things going on, you know, multiple databases that they've been moving around. I thought this also prompted me for the actual estimate as part of this. You can make a template hard code the estimate that it's pulling from. And so let's see here. Maybe if I click this, and if I come up here to Liberty Reports and refresh. Yeah, all right. Maybe there was nothing in that other estimate. Okay, this is the result that I wanted to show you. But you get the concept garbage in and garbage out, meaning if I connect to a database that doesn't have the content in there, then I'm not going to have much to show you. So what you're seeing here when I hit refresh is a summary of information that's in your various different tables in the Sage database, Sage Estimating database. Here I'm showing a group summary of information, and it will pull things like the contract amount, the job size from the estimate header if you've populated those values. Now, what the software doesn't do right now, it could at some point, but it doesn't, it's one directional. It's just pulling the data out of your estimating of what you have in there. In our Office connector, it's bidirectional. So if I saw that the contract amount was missing, I could put a value in here and push it back. That's not available here. That's not part of the scope of this. This is just a reporting. But I'll show you a number of things that we're doing here that is an interesting approach to information analysis, if you will. One is I'm showing you summarized information, and I'm actually summarizing it right here. What I'm not doing is I'm not pulling the detail into some sheet and then creating a pivot table. Now you could do that, but the value of doing something like this is it's faster, and you can also access data from a lot more different tables and have a lot more control over the presentation. We're also using a visual element with the data. So we're graphing it. So this graph is simply, you just insert a graph and you highlight the data that the graph goes with. And when this data changes, the graph changes. So you're adding visual elements to reports, I think is highly desirable. Makes it more understandable. But notice I have other tabs of information here. I have phases, I have items, so on and so forth. So what we have here, if you notice, I'm showing the group phase, but there's a little code next to it. That's our drill down capability. Now, like my cursor right now is on a field that's finding information. That's a Liberty Reports function. So there's functions and the ability to query. Both of those things are at work here in front of you. And if you notice right up here where it's looking to find like the contract amount, I'm on that. It's the DB find function is a function here on Liberty Reports. So I'm going to go in a little bit more detail than just showing you the report, because I want you to understand what's possible. And consequently, if you decide that you want to write your own, you can. But it's going to find information, and then you tell it the source. So in this case, you're giving it a name and you're identifying a database. So the name associated with my estimate information is Sage Estimating Estimates. And then I'm getting information out of a certain table, the cover page, and I'm asking for that amount off that, because there's lots of fields on the cover page. And I could provide additional conditions like the first value, because there's just one row, in that particular table. But I could scroll through different tables. So the find function allows me to reach in to the database and find content that matches some condition and display it. So that's at work up here. Down here is a query. So if you notice, it says I'm in C8, but if I click this drop-down box, it will show me every defined name in my Excel workbook. These are very, very useful concepts. Defining names allows you to actually, jump to a specific place. That's what people use for navigating with hyperlinks, what have you. But it also identifies something that you might actually pull from a consolidation workbook. So let's say I had a workbook that I wanted to consolidate information from a variety of different estimates. Now I could just do that with Liberty Reports, but the whole benefit of this is that you can approach a solution based on what occurs to you. So, you could just have a workbook that looks at other workbooks and pulls the values out of them for, some kind of a summary or consolidation. And your ability to do so is accommodated by consistent use of Excel in these ways. So defining the name. Now see here, there's a query item. When we use our software to build a query, and a query connects an area of Excel to information in some database that's dynamic. So in this case, items. Then when you build that, or this person built it, we save that special defined name with the word QRY in front of it, so you can find all your queries very quickly. And there's other pieces of information here. But down here, if I come here and I look at, say, this formula, it has a drill down. So LR drill down is what's going to take this data and pass it to another query and refresh. So depending on what I select here, I may want to drill into it. All you have to do to use it is double click, and it will take the data and pass it to another report and refresh. So that's drill down. Now drill down actually can do a lot more than that. The most common way that people use drill down is to take data and get to more detailed information. I'll also point out to you that if it were desirable at some point, let's say you were using Sage 300 CRE, and on some report you're looking at information and you wanted to be able to pull data out of that database, for example, then assuming your company has Sage Office Connector, I could use this capability along with Liberty Reports in the same report. So you have access to data. And I mentioned if you had other databases out there, perhaps not estimating, and you wanted to pull them into this worksheet or some other one, you would be able to do that. So if that's desirable, you would just speak to your consultant and your salesperson, your according salesperson, and they would accommodate you by getting you the software that you need to accomplish whatever. But all of this is just simply a standard license of Liberty Reports for estimating, and you're seeing it displayed here. Joe, you want to have any comments on what they're seeing and the value of being able to do the kinds of things that I'm doing here? Just to give you the opportunity to speak, should you wish. Just chime in if that occurs to you. I just drilled into the items for a given phase, so I can go to look at any phase and drill into it. I could also just come in here and put in a phase and hit refresh, and it will show me that information. But the concept of drilling into detail, I might look at an item and go, well, that's interesting. I wonder for this particular item, what assembly, it's associated with. So if I click this, it's going to drill into the assembly. And now I'm seeing all the items for that assembly. So it's a way to navigate through your estimating information, and it follows a format and a plot, that is desirable or meaningful for you. You can really do whatever you want with this kind of technology. Any comment on the usefulness of this sort of thing? Joe? You do a lot of reporting with a lot of different tools.
Definitely a powerful tool, and I guess we'll rely on Krista to see if any questions get documented. I guess she'll funnel them through.
Okay.
No questions at this time.
I'm going to minimize this one, and I'm going to just build something from nothing. So there's other reports here. But let me just build something from nothing. Now, as I'm looking at my Liberty reports, assume my consultant has provided me other reports. I said, look, I want to do this, I want to do that. Actually, I'm going to show one other report, and then I'll build something from nothing. But if I'm going to show you this proposal, an itemized proposal. But if I got a report sent to me, all I have to do is take it and save it in this folder right here. Now, that folder will be different depending on who is using Liberty Reports, what customer. When you install Liberty Reports in your system, you're going to select the proper location. Your consultants will help you, support will help you, but then you'll have the location that your Liberty Reports is in, and this is the location of all the templates. So if I open this, I can save new templates here, and then they'll just appear here on my Launchpad. Now again, these are templates. So my work process, for example, for a proposal would be, I'm going to select the template, and it's going to open up, and I'm going to then be able to follow a process to do something. In this case, I'm going to create a proposal, and then I would save that workbook somewhere in a folder that is desirable and useful for me. So it's asking me here at the top, select the address book, the database for address books. So I hit select, and it can prompt for whatever. It can be set up to prompt you for each thing each time. But if you just have one location for your data, maybe once that's identified, it's hard coded into your template for you. So I'm going to pick then my estimate. I think I chose McKinsey Oaks 2 last time, but I'm going to try this. Now, you can put in, because I'm going to produce a proposal over here, okay? And that can look the way you want it to look. This is just one way of seeing a proposal, but we know for a fact that different people have different formats for their proposals. So here's the landing zone for the information for this particular type of a proposal. And if I had a different type of proposal, then that would most likely be in a different template, most likely created from this one and then customized. And I would have another template for different types of proposals I do. But my work process would be to select my estimate, identify, we're allowing you to specify your company address type. That's going to pull out of the address book. It can put in your the company logo. If I have my logo located somewhere, I haven't prepared a logo, here. I should probably got an accordant logo for this presentation. But you could click this ellipsis here, and it would take you out, allow you to browse and find your whatever file has your logo in it. You can tell it to allocate add-ons. You can also tell it to combine items or not, and then you're going to refresh the data. And when you refresh the data for this estimate, it will produce a proposal for that, and you have it here. Again, if you don't want these numbers on there, you don't have to have the numbers on there. But you can already have it default that when you refresh, that all this data is selected, all the way down. So, and you can give it a defined name, you know, proposal. So you could either put a button right here that says print, or you could go file print and you could print it out. You could save it as a PDF. You could do whatever it is you want to do with this. So this is one way to look at creating a proposal and formatted the way you wish it to be formatted. You can allow your typed in information right here as well. Or you could choose instead, or have a different template that just has the table of information, like on the items and what have you, that you want to feed into a Word document proposal. So Excel is inherently can feed mail merge for Word. So if you have a proposal laid out in Word and you want to get the data from estimating and just populate it, that's a simple thing to do. And at some point down the road, we will actually just be using Word as an optional route. It will go straight from estimating via our technology into Word. But right now, you would go through staged information in estimating, in Excel to get over to Word. So I'm sure you've had requests for these sorts of things, Joe, creating different types of proposals for people.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to build something now from nothing. And so if I do that, I'm just going to, well, I could go to a new file, actually. What I'm going to do here instead is I'm going to use one of these templates. I told you that this is a benefit to you that we've created. And if you're unsure, if you're using this and you're unsure, you can just read this getting started, or get a little bit of consulting on guidance on, you know, like, okay, I saw the presentation, but now I actually want to try to use it. So we can get you an evaluation time period for the Liberty Report software so you can run it. Again, though, you must have your data in SQL Server in order to be able to do that. So don't try to point this at the pervasive data. But if I click this, it's going to ask me then to, you know, it's going to take me into a workbook. It's going to give me an area where I can put in my notes. It's going to help you with this page right here. So what it's doing, and what we've done is we've hid the row so you can see. We've given you a means to browse through your estimate catalog to select your estimate. And when you select your estimate, whatever it is, it'll populate the estimate ID here. Once you hit refresh, it'll take whatever estimate you pick and it'll populate here. That cell has a name, estimate ID. So later on my report tab, if I ever want to reference my estimate, whichever estimate I selected here, I just can reference the cell estimate ID and it will, boom, it'll pull it for you automatically. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, right now I don't have anything, any of this information. If I hit refresh, for example, I can begin the process of tying it to this estimate. So at that point, when I do that, I'm on a specific estimate. So that estimate ID now is over here. And I'm on this report tab, and it's beginning that process of building the report. So this note is a kind of a push in the right direction, basically just recapping what I just got done telling you. So I'm just going to delete this. And I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm going to come into Liberty Reports, and I'm going to use the query because I want to grab data from the item table and then begin to evolve a report. So I click query, and it's beginning now. This is the magic behind it. That's going to lead me through a process of building content. So I'm going to pick my Liberty Reports product. Right now it's just Sage Estimating, so I pick that. Now it says, you know, select the database for the Sage Estimating connection. So I'm going to come down here and choose this database. And now it's showing me a list of tables that are in that database. And these are all the tables. Well, remember that in this particular workbook, I told it that I wanted to use the staged information so that add-ons could already be allocated across. So I want to only look at tables that are in the report schema, not all of these. So you're going to see the same table multiple times, but with different schemas over here, and I only want to look at the report schema. So I type in that, and now I'm only getting the data that is staged that I can utilize. So I can come in here and actually that estimate table is what we were looking at earlier on the admin page, where it has an ID, but we're allowing you to work with it with the easy captions here. So if I come in here and I select this, so now I'm going to hit next because I want to start selecting columns from this table. So I hit next, and now and it's telling me you're in the column selection time. And any field that you're on, we're going to show you all the values out here, or at least the first so many values. So you can confirm visually that you're pulling the right information. So we're attempting to make it easy for you to understand how to get the data out of the system. And the internal name is what Sage will call this information. If we feel like we can give you a better, more easy to understand caption, then we may provide that caption over here in this column. So what I want to do here is I don't want to see my individual item codes, let's say. I want to see the phase, and I want to see the description, and and now I want to see amounts. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in the word amount, so that it only is focusing on those columns, so that I'm not navigating that extensive list of all the possible columns on the item table. And now I'm going to choose these amounts. I'm just grabbing all of them just so that they're visible. You're going to pick the kinds of things that make sense to the kind of report you're doing. Now, this is the description, say, for that item, and I may want the phase code description. In fact, I may not even want the description on that item. So I think I can just I've done this. Yeah, I right-clicked and I hit remove. Okay, so when down here in this preview, I can do a lot with the report. I can work with the report. So what I did is I right-clicked, and when you right-click, you have a number of things you can do. You can put a custom caption for the column. You can sort the information. You can view this SQL, because that's what this tool is doing. It's using you're navigating a wizard, but it's building structured query language, which is a description to a program to pull the data out of the system that I want. So, and I could also view the data. Well, so what I want here is I want the phase code description. So I'm going to come out over here, and this button right here, I'm on the item table. If I click this button, it will show me every table that's related to the item table. So if I click it, I can add, from the possible tables, and I can find my phase table, right? So the phases are on items, but the actual description for the phase is on the phase table. So I can select that table, and oops, what do I do here? Should be showing me my list of columns for the phase table. Hang on a second here. All right. This will when I click on the table, it will preview the values over here. I think it needs to complete its loading of information here before I get kind of the cart ahead of the horse. Okay. So when I click on a table, I can see the values of that table. So selecting this, when I select this, it adds that table to the number of tables I can pull columns off of. So if I say that this is the table I want, then I do not know why it's not showing me the list of values off this particular table. Oh, there's your answer.
Yeah, you got the filter left on.
It was a test.
It's
I was
doing its
testing
job.
everyone. Everybody except Joe failed. No, I failed and everybody succeeded. I had the filter on there. When you know technology works, then you know that if you're not getting the results, you expect there's something, you know, here right in front of you most likely. Okay, so here are all the different types of things it's showing. Now, I only want it for the estimate I'm on because, you know, I might have a different description for the phase. So when I select this, it knows how the two tables are connected. It knows the estimate ID and the phase code from the item table, and it's pulling connecting the two tables and pulling the respective information. Now, when I add this column, this is all the descriptions for phases, but I'm adding a column there. So the description for that phase will be over here. When I come over here, I can click this and I can pull it over like so. There's a leg when you work with this kind of stuff. So I've got phase code, I got description, so on and so forth. So that's great. I'm going to hit next, but right now it's for every estimate. I haven't limited what estimates it's pulling from. So if I had the estimate column here, you'd see a variety of different estimates, and I don't want that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a condition that the estimate ID, now that's the value I want to limit by, and then here's a comparison. And I want it to be equal to, and in this case, a cell reference. Now I could click this option here and go and find where the estimate ID is. It's on the admin page, the estimate, for McKinsey Oaks. But remember, we used the define name capability in Excel. We already named that cell. So if you click this drop-down box, all you have to do is go find the name, the estimate ID is what I want, and it shows you the value that you have in that cell. It's over on the admin page. I showed it to you earlier. And so when you hit OK, now it's limiting the results only for that one estimate. So if you want to do something that's across multiple estimates, absolutely. It's very simple to do those kinds of reports. And that was a question someone emailed after one of our other presentations. It's like, can I combine data easily from multiple estimates? And the answer is absolutely. So I've hit next. And now I'm going to get one row, like if a phase has multiple items, I'm going to see that phase code multiple times. And I don't want to see it multiple times. I only just want to see it once. So I'm going to hit summarize. And what that does is it's going to summarize everything that's numeric. Well, the phase code and description are not numeric. So it's going to summarize that. And, and of course, you got your rounding issues. You can take care of that back out there and when you get to Excel. So I've got it summarized. I'm going to do one other thing, and that is the sort order. If you are pulling data out of the system and it's not inside of Sage sorted the way you want to see the information, like you pick columns, but it's not sorted in that way, your amounts on your report are not going to be correct because it's going to go until that value changes, and it's going to add them all together. Well, if you have more values further down in the list of all the data, it's not going to include that. So you're going to mess yourself up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit add sort, and I'm going to say I want to sort by the phase code. So now all the data is sorted by the phase code. In this case, it worked because the first one that was on the top was 3 something or other, and now it's all sorted by phase code. So that's very important to make sure it's all sorted properly. And again, if you were building something yourself, most likely a consultant would be helping you. Make sure that you approach building your report correctly. So now I'm going to hit finish, and it's going to take the data and populate it right here inside of my report. And at this point now, I can, if I told you, or as I told you before, we put the word QRY in front of everything that we create. So it's most likely this right here is the query. And so when you click it, it highlights it all. And that's where you can come over here and you can put on your filter control. And you could also come over here and you could put in total. So if I do an auto sum, you want to make sure that you're using the right thing. So a sum is going to produce a certain result, but what you want to do actually is use the subtotal function, because if you limit what is being displayed because you only choose certain codes, a sum function is going to add everything up regardless if it's visible, whereas a subtotal function won't do that. So I can just come over here and instead, there's an option to do that, but I'm just going to say And I think people who know Excel know these things. Where is that? Why is it not coming up? All functions. There we go. I know I just don't use it very often. Okay, so the function number, now it's 1 to 11. What you want, if you know Excel, is a 9. That's going to be a sum. And then I can say, I think it's like, so, and I hit OK, and I have a result. And then I can just take that result and copy it over. I like that aspect of Excel. Build it one time and make it the way you want. And then you can use, you can highlight this and pick how you want to summarize it if you already have a format control, for your header or footers. You can also use the functions in Liberty Reports to grab data from any other kind of information that's in the database and put it in your headers and footers or in column headings. And I'll point out also that if I added a function over here that was a sum or whatever else, I can have values in my column headings that can be changeable. And when I change them, the formula will change. So it's very simple to build content that's visual and interactive, and boom, you get a result. So that's how you use the designer to build something or to add something to something that's already built. So if I come back out of here and get to my PowerPoint, so I pledge to complete on time, now we'll do that this time, is here, when we think about Liberty Reports, there are going to be different use cases that we've heard about. Custom proposals, we showed you one. I've also showed you that you could build something from nothing, or you could customize what we have and build alternates of that. Alternate proposals, example, and they could include alternates. And you can pull information from multiple estimates. You could do comparison reports, variance reports, subcontractor bid history. Remember, I told you this is inherently connectable to Sage 300 Construction and Real Estate via the Office Connector capability. So it would be very simple to take the estimate and put it into Sage. Now, estimating has that capability inherently, but sometimes people want to rework their estimate to get it. Maybe the project manager is not the estimator, and they want to take the estimate, put it in Excel, and then reorganize it in a way that they want to build it, and then import it. And Sage Office Connector could accommodate that, making the import very easy to create. And then, of course, pricing analysis. So if I look in here, and I mentioned already just now, combining this data with data from other ERP systems to produce whatever it is, the desirable result you want. And, of course, ad hoc reporting. So the technology, Liberty Reports for Sage Estimating, utilizes a programming interface that Liberty Reports SQL Server would not utilize, that would allocate add-ons and ability to combine items and things like this. We have, as I said, report-ready captions and table joins. If you use Liberty Reports SQL Server and you grab data from one table and then you try to grab data from another table in the wizard, it wouldn't necessarily know how those tables are related, and it would then prompt you. And not everybody knows how tables are related, so it's more challenging to use that technology. So I just caution you. In supported platforms, version 17 or higher, SQL Edition only. These are the versions of Microsoft Excel. Notice it says 32-bit only. So the default when you install Excel nowadays is 64-bit. So why did Microsoft do that? They didn't add a lot of capability into the 64-bit other than very, very large files that I've not ever seen anyone go past the limits that the 32-bit offers. But what they did is they disabled the ability for certain components that were originally designed that developers utilized to work with 64-bit Excel. So they have to, create new content essentially. And this software requires the 32-bit. Well, the good news is when Excel is distributed, when Microsoft Office is distributed, it distributes both 32-bit and 64-bit. It just defaults to install 64-bit. So it's very simple, actually, to go and have your Excel as 32-bit. And since it's a requirement, and if you want this useful technology, that's what we're going to recommend that you do. Here are the Windows platforms that it works with, and all of this is on our website as well. Under Liberty Reports, there are requirements. You can see that. All the pricing is there and a lot of other information, although I am going to talk about pricing here. This is the current pricing, although I know that there's plans for there to be an escalation in the pricing. It has been this pricing for a while, so act now. But it's the standard license capability. It's very affordable. Now there are concurrent uses. So when you're using an Excel workbook and you've refreshed information, if you save it and you close it, you release your concurrency. Now a lot of people won't do that because if there's limited concurrencies, they want to be able to refresh whenever they want, so they won't get out of it. But we make it affordable for buying them in groups, so you get a discount when you buy bigger quantities. The designer license currently is $12.95. I believe it's going to escalate to $15.95. So, that's the pricing as it is now. You pay that once, and now you have the software. Additionally, there's maintenance and support. That's 25% annually. So that it's going to calculate if you got any discounts on the product, that if that came up, that would not apply to maintenance and support. It's always calculated on list price. And that's what you could plan to have, going forward. That would be technical support on Liberty Reports itself. But the consulting and what have you, to get going, to build something, here's how you're going to contact Accordant. Here's a phone number, or if you know your consultant, who may very well be on the phone. Now, I'll just tell you, as busy as I am, it's always easier if people go through the right route to get a hold of me, because I have a group of people who work to manage my communication, and I would assume it's the same thing for you folks. So, Joe, is that correct? You recommend everybody contact services at Accordant, to request consulting and so on?
Yeah, channel the requests that way, that's for sure.
Excellent. Otherwise, your email, he could wish to see it, but it's going to be lost amongst a lot of other emails. And it depends on if there's time to read the emails. At this point, if there are any questions, I'd like to entertain those. And I don't know if you can bring people off mute, Krista, and assuming how much time is still available. This is the contact information for Accordant. And although I don't know if that's the correct contact information for sales, I think, isn't it, Bob Napa, that would be the right contact information for sales?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have to confirm, but yeah, it'll be in the follow-up email.
Oh, okay. So in the follow-up email, you'll get the correct content so that you'll get routed to the right place. So sorry, that was for the some other technology that Accordant offers. And so different people, different specialties. So this is it. And if there are any questions, I can field those.
We don't have any questions at this time. If you do have a question, type it into the box on the screen.
Joe, do you want to offer any other words of wisdom, pieces of advice, along with what I demonstrated here?
I think just kind of in a nutshell, the challenge people will always have with reporting is doing all of the hunting and pecking and detective work on all the SQL strings and whatnot. So your technology takes a lot of that burden off the table, and you can focus on reporting, not going into a mine, not knowing where stuff is.
Right. And although I didn't go into it, this is a very simple report. But if I click on any of this, up here, there are various different options. Well, one of them shows you edit SQL. And I'm not recommending you go and do this, but this is the language of reporting. So you have to be able to create this or edit this. And if you make a mistake, you're going to get an undesirable result. And that's always not good. If you're going to create a proposal with incorrect information, you may be owning that experience. So you don't have to do that when you're using the technology. I think that's the point that Joe just made. All right. Well, Krista, I think that if there's nothing else, we can wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for attending. and have a great day. Contact us if you have any other questions.